Okay, cool. So let's start with some intros. I'll start with myself. Like she said, I'm a creator. I also work at #Paid, which is essentially a creator marketplace that helps brands connect with creators in an authentic way. And so throughout our conversations, I think we'll be able to speak to all of that and my perspective as a creator as well. But I'll pass it on to you, Kirsten.
Thanks. My name's Kirsten Karlsson. I've been with Ascent Protein for 7 years. So started out as employee number 3 and have helped build the brand over the last couple of years. So excited to be speaking with you guys today.
Hi, I'm Chrissy Arsenault. I am the brand manager for the VitaFusion brand at Church & Dwight. It's roughly over $500 million, and we're the #1 adult gummy brand in the US. And it was first founded in 1998. So a lot of heritage there, tried and true. So excited to be here with this group today.
I love that. Nothing like #1. Cool. So I think what I want to start with is a discussion around pre and post pandemic. I think we all know it's pretty widespread knowledge that, sales there's a surge in the vitamin mineral supplement space during the pandemic. However, that has slowed down. So I think although it's still higher than what it was pre-pandemic, this is something that calls for caution. And so specifically for you, Chrissy, I'm curious to know sort of what's top of mind for you in terms of sort of approaching this challenge and safeguarding the brand for the future as this continues.
Yeah, so 2 things come to mind, Reza. One being just shifts in purchasing behavior. It's interesting to hear perspectives from the Gymshark folks, especially because we started out with strong retailer relationships, right? Like we were the only brand that went into Costco initially. Like we're found everywhere from Walmart, Target, et cetera, more of like your big box retailers, right? And what we saw during the pandemic, and we had, established e-com goals to try to get to a higher percentage of sales coming from e-com and really building out what that ecosystem looks like. But during the pandemic, all of those goals just went out the window because we overshot them and everybody was just picking up vitamins for their immunity and their self-care on the shelf. So we were like, okay, well, we hit those goals. So what does the future of e-commerce and digital look like? So that shift in behavior happened where e-com became more of a focus. So even moving forward, right, how do we sustain that growth? And how do we meet the consumer where we're at? Recently, we saw data that people are searching and researching products and brands and what's right for them. And they're starting on Amazon versus Google. So sorry, Google folks over there. So given that shift in behavior, how can we use Amazon to try to educate? How can we make sure that our product detail pages on retailers have all the information that consumers need to ultimately make a decision instead of just having product pictures up there, right, of packaging? So the shift in behavior is one that's changed during the pandemic and something that we're continuing to learn, iterate, test and learn, and fail forward so that we can continue to be successful. Second is building a brand that consumers love. And the brand marketers in this room, it's like, no duh, well, we always have to be doing that. But people aren't just searching for product benefits and saying, oh, well, I take this because it has like, X milligrams of vitamin D. They're ultimately making choices because of the stories that we tell as marketers and as brands, because people aren't buying products just because of what they do for them. And maybe in some categories that's true. But what we see in our category is we have to build brands for the long term and really drive that brand love through authentic connections so that people stay in the brand for the long term. So maybe it was a pandemic a purchase because you wanted to focus more on immunity, but well, how do we sustain that purchase over the long term and get people to come back? And that's where the storytelling piece and authentic connections come in.
Well, I mean, I love that. I think even from I've seen a lot in terms of creator marketing where brands are using creator content for something like an Amazon page to tell their story. They're no longer using models, photographers, etc., because they want to connect with folks that have an authentic connection to the brand. I know, as an example, something that we do for Everlywell, for them, gut health is super important. And so our recommendation has always been like, get a pitch from creators so that you can get a sense of, excuse me, outside of the content that you see on their pages, what is their story? Maybe they've had gut health issues for 8 years, and that's the story they want to tell, and I'll align that with your brand. I'm curious, I want to pass it on to you. Similar question, I know that the trends are a little bit different in terms of growth, where it's still considerably high during pandemic and post-pandemic. but it is a very competitive market, right? And so I'm curious, what strategies or tactics do you have in mind to stay competitive in this market?
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think the pandemic in some ways was actually very helpful for our business. So a lot of people started focusing on their health. We saw a huge increase in our D2C sales, as I think a lot of other brands did as well. But also a recognition we primarily produce protein. From a protein standpoint, that protein is important not just for post-workout health, but also from a just daily nutritional standpoint. And so that has been great for our brand. At the same time, it has also caused a lot of fragmentation, and that's affected our distribution strategy. So we had a lot of CrossFit gyms and independently owned gyms that were carrying our products. But as people start to work out at home and find other places to work out, that has disrupted our marketing a little bit. So it's been sort of a two-prong approach. One has been to continue to focus on our hardcore endemic athletes that we have always been our bread and butter, and continuing to keep a focus on them, but also making sure that we are starting to speak to that larger demographic of users who found out about the benefits of taking protein during the pandemic. So a few ways that we're doing that is through some content marketing, influencer marketing. Others is going to events. So I know the Gymshark team talked about that, making sure that we are in front of our consumers and able to tell that brand story in a really authentic way. And you can get into some sort of deeper details when you're one-on-one with somebody versus trying to tell that entire brand story at once. And then of course, innovation. So if we are not producing products that these consumers need in some of the key categories like gut health, hydration, clean energy, et cetera, and doing so in a very clean way, that's something that Ascent takes into account is 0 artificial ingredients. Nobody wants to be doing something really healthy and then have their ingredient panel have 20 ingredients that they've never heard of before. So making sure that that's top of mind as well.
Cool. I guess I'm curious on both of those points around expanding to new audiences. So not just your hardcore athlete, like the everyday protein user, while also introducing these new innovative pieces like gut health, et cetera. How are you communicating that how are you connecting with consumers on that? I know you mentioned content, but maybe elaborate a bit there in terms of how that message is being conveyed.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us are leaning on influencers and ambassadors to do so in the right way, finding them and getting them to tell brand messaging is obviously super important. And then from an innovation standpoint, I know we all talked about supply chain being a challenge. So I think it's a combination of some line extensions so that we're faster to market, as well as some net new products that we're working on.
Yeah, because I was creeping your page and there was some like protein water as an example. There was pre-workout and the energy piece.
Right.
And so do you foresee, I'm curious from like a product innovation, new SKUs?
Yes.
Or
Yep. Yeah. I mean, we have to be innovating with new SKUs all the time. So you can't be in a CPG place, especially within sports nutrition, without coming out with either new flavors or new products or new line extensions with added benefits for these types of consumers.
Cool. And I think just on the topic of creator marketing for catering to new audiences, I'll use a really good example from, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Skills. It's like masterclass, but for sports. And so for their strategy, they were predominantly working with Michael Phelps was an example. So that's like your top of the line, right, in that space. But a gap for them was working with smaller micro creators that were just starting out.
Yeah.
And that's a gap that I find that a lot of brands have is when they think about influencer marketing, they don't always think about that smaller segment. Like I'll use myself as an example. I just started going to Rumble. It's my second session. And so the story I would tell in terms of taking protein from my Rumble classes is going to be much different than the story that a professional Rumble person would.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we work with some NFL athletes. We work with athletes within the endemic CrossFit space, weightlifting space, obstacle course racing space, but finding those influencers and ambassadors who have maybe a smaller following, but higher engagement. And I'm sure we have all experienced the variety of pricing within that influencer space as well, is definitely a challenge. So yeah, if you have any insights there, I'd certainly be open to hearing more about that.
I think depending on, like there's different ways that you can do it to be very cost effective right? One way I find that when brands gift, make the gift extra special, right? I'm sure Gymshark does this very well in their gifting programs versus their paid collabs. I'm sure they do nice packaging for paid as well. But if there's very low budget, then I would just focus on a really good gifting package, really customized messaging to that creator, and almost not asking for definitive deliverables to come back from it. Because then that puts a bit of a pressure. Whereas if they get something very nice, they feel obliged to support the brand.
And create something authentic to them.
Exactly. And I mean, I think if you go for more volume with more content from one creator, you're likely to get better rates. And it's better across the board because if they are a good match, then you do want to do more content with them.
Right. And consumers can tell when they only see one single post from an influencer versus multiple ones. So
The one and done. Maybe we didn't plan for this, Chrissy, but I'll ask you, I'm curious, when you look at your, creator marketing strategy, how does it tie into some of the things that we've been talking about, having larger creators, micro, mid-size?
Yeah. Well, when we look at creators, the content has to authentically match the brand. And, with the supplements industry, we do have to make sure that, there's boundaries as far as like what they can say and what they can't say. Cause a lot of times we do see like a lot of the supplements out there that are like, this will help you lose 10 pounds overnight. Right. So that's what we try to steer clear from like a creator standpoint. Like, are there people that are over promising versus people that are authentically saying like, hey, these are the things you can expect over like 90 days maybe, or, some of the immediate versus long-term benefits that you'll see. So that's important. And then us as a brand, like we're able to use a lot of that content across platforms, right? So as long as we have usage rights for it and it comes through in an authentic way, we've seen a lot of great artistic ways, for example, to bring things to life or fun ways to even show gummies, right? And like all the photography that they do, and then leverage it across some of our other channels where we can really showcase that because it's a reflection of what we do as a brand and it's coming from the creators and the people who genuinely love the brand versus the brand saying, hey, this is cool because these are real people speaking to the brand and the products and the benefits of the stories that they tell.
Yeah, and I feel like just from a creator's perspective, for gummy vitamins, it is so crowded with gimmicky type products. And so the messaging has to be super clean. There really does have to be an authentic fit so that the followers of that creator or that audience don't look at it and say, oh, it's just another gummy vitamin. And so that's actually a pretty good transition in our next topic, as far as, what's important to consumers, and that being science-based health products or science-backed health products versus gimmicks. So I guess outside of selecting the right creators that are an authentic fit, and we'll start with you, Chrissy, what are some tactics that, you're leveraging to, or how are you differentiating from other gimmicky competitors?
Yeah, so I'd say we have a very strong team of nutrition scientists in-house that test and research everything that we do, right? So it's not just what's the next hot ingredient that's trending on Google or the next TikTok fad. It's about, what's the science and the literature that's out there that justifies what we're trying to bring to market. So that's important. And then from a product innovation standpoint, the consumer insight has to be there. We're not just gonna look at random things and say, oh, that's cool, let's see if that sticks. We start from the consumer insight as we bring products through commercialization and really uncover what's the need that we're not fulfilling in the market, that and the unique value that we can bring to them. So that's really how we start in terms of bringing true innovation to the market and making sure that it's science-based and we trust the products that we make and put them through third-party testing. So they have no gluten, they contain no artificial dyes and none of the bad stuff that people want in the products that they're looking at. So through our in-house approach as well as product innovation approach and through extensive testing, we make sure that it's stuff that you'd want to give to your kids or to a friend, right? Because when VitaFusion was first founded in 1998, it was created by parents who didn't want to swallow like horse pills or give that to their children. So they're like, how do we make nutrition fun and delicious and something that we'd be comfortable giving to our kids? So that's where they looked at even like the gummy bear form, which is our Little Critters brand today, and said, hey, well, we can bring this good tasting vitamin and still meet people's nutritional needs. So that's what, I think we should stand behind. And as an industry, we have to continue to get better at that altogether to make sure that there's science-based, reasons for bringing these products to life versus the next fad diet, because there's so many gimmicks and fad diets out there.
You could lose trust pretty quickly. I mean, it's the same in the creator space. If you say something that's super off, your followers will leave, or you lose your trust with your word. How are we on timing, by the way? I don't have my watch today, so we have about 10 minutes. Okay, so let's maybe switch. I'd love to get your perspective, because I know this was, when we prepped for this, a very important topic. And so how do you differentiate against the other gimmicky competitors?
Yeah, I mean, within the protein space, there are a lot of gimmicks in sports nutrition in general around losing 10 pounds instantly. We are also very lucky to have a team of protein scientists who are continually evaluating our ingredients. We also produce our own protein. So we actually make all of our protein in Greeley, which is just north of here if you guys are not from Colorado, versus buying it from a co-man. So that's something that's pretty different for us. It also influenced our tagline, which is the official sponsor of hard work, essentially meaning that you have to put in the hard work in order for yourself to get these results. You're not going to be able to take a pill and get instant muscles. So it's something that we continue to push. It's also something that we differentiate with our nutrition facts panel versus supplement facts panel. So we're regulated as a food, and just the cleanliness of our ingredients. Now, boiling all of that down into a simple and straightforward, clean brand message is really where we start to lean on those creators to help us tell those stories, as well as going to some of those events and in-person activations, because those are not simple messages to convey just in a single banner ad or paid social ads. So those are important tactics for us.
Gymshark and Ascent partnership, just throwing it out there, and you owe me the commissions after. Or maybe a collaboration. Think about it. Creator marketing. We can all get involved. Win-win-win.
Totally.
I guess I was curious on the content piece, or not on the content necessarily, but on communicating these science-based facts. It is a challenge, right? To communicate, especially we live in a short form world. And so I'm curious, I have some thoughts on this, but I can share it after. Maybe I can get Chrissy's feedback. When do you find it's appropriate to focus on short form while still wanting to communicate those facts versus long form? The way I look at it is long form is YouTube, whereas short form is TikTok. But the question is, how do you get the message across while staying under 30 seconds?
Is that for me, Kirsten?
Actually, if you want to go.
Okay.
This was the unplanned one. So
yeah, no, I mean, I think we've all talked a lot about brand loyalty and just excitement about a brand. And I think that's where you need to start first, is obviously getting people excited about the brand, showing aspirational and inspirational athletes and a variety of people that people can associate themselves with, and then starting to get into the details. I think a big point of difference for us too is just the taste of our products. So driving trial is extremely important for our brand, because that is something that ultimately will help convert people. So short answer, I guess, would be, the long form is really driving that brand awareness and brand excitement, then driving trial, then getting into some of those nitty gritty details.
Yeah, I'll echo what Kirsten said on taste. So we do some extensive demoing, or at least we're trying to reinstate that post-pandemic wherever, retailers will allow for it. So that's one piece. And then, attention spans, like for everybody, are, so short, right? So even just a 30-second ad, like now that's, too long of an ad to even retain attention. And you can really get so many things across. So if you're, looking at the benefits of vitamin C, for example, you're not going to get all those messages messages across and all the evidence that you have behind that product in that one ad. So it's capture the attention. And then if consumers are researching for more information, it has to be there like on the back of the panel so that consumers can read through it and look through the supplement facts panel or nutrition facts panel. And then making sure that your websites, your PDPs, your like social, everything contains all the information that consumers would be looking for if they're choosing to look into that. Because not all consumers are going to look for that necessarily, but it's having that information be very transparent and available should they go look for it.
I love that. And I actually just had 2 thoughts and maybe recommendations to share with everyone on that front. I think there's an interesting way that you could leverage trends like on TikTok to focus on one key message that could even be under 15 seconds. For example, tell me you have clean protein without telling me you have clean protein. And it could be as simple as showing the ingredients box, right? Or the label. I know we did that for Nurtec, for example. It was tell me you take Nurtec ODT without telling me. And it was a video of people dancing and having fun and not having a headache. And then they have a link to more information. And then the second recommendation on slightly longer formats in terms of content, let's say up to a minute, one thing that I found has been working very well for brands is oftentimes brands have a very like fascination with having the brand name shared within the first 3 seconds. Like it's a mandatory part of the brief, but that negatively impacts in a lot of the cases, the performance, because the user will see that and just scroll through, oh, it's another brand ad. Whereas if you capture them with comedy, then they'll stay on for the ride. And at the end, it'll be a Vitafusion ad, right? So I think I'll leave it at that. I think we're pretty close to time. Do we have any time for questions? Yes. I get excited.
Brian Reese, Google again. So a lot of talk about creators and whatnot. I guess in a similar space, a lot of you and Reza, you kind of hinted to this a little bit, but when looking to partner with creators, like how much do you look at what other brands that they've partnered with in the past and how much does that like influence your decisions? And then is there an opportunity if you see, you know, continuous creators that you're partnering with that other brands have to kind of commingle that messaging or work together in some way?
Yeah, I can take that one from a brand perspective. So, you know, because each brand, I would say, at least like out of the top competitive set that we look at within gummy vitamins, stands for something very different, and they have their unique territory and positioning in their consumers' minds. So if we see that a creator is working with, you know, 3 different brands, right, that stand for maybe something else that's not authentic to our brand, like that authenticity is super important. So if it's, you know, maybe playing in a different space altogether versus like gummy vitamins, maybe we'd consider that. But if they've been, you know, doing everything in the vitamin space for like key competitors, that's probably not the right fit. Whereas if there's adjacencies where it makes sense, right? Like we have, for example, melatonin gummies. So sleep is one of the need states or segments that we play in. And we see, you know, they have maybe like bedding that they also promote, or maybe like quality of sleep. And they have like, you know, apps that they would help, they would promote for better quality of sleep. Maybe that would be more of a fit. And then we would then say, oh, well, you can you still promote those areas that are still in the same segments that we play in, but a totally different approach. So we look at it more from an adjacency standpoint.
Yeah, similarly, if somebody has been working with a ton of different protein brands, there's no point in us throwing the hat in the ring because consumers see through that. They know that. To Reza's point about product and driving trial in advance, we do that a lot. So one of our athletes that we work with is Jonathan Taylor, and we sent him product when he was just in his rookie season. And then over the years have developed a much stronger partnership with him. And finding those partners who authentically take and can talk about our product is so important versus I've seen other brands or talk to other athletes where they're like, I've never even tried, you know, this product. So having that piece, consumers can really tell whether or not they're authentic or not.
I mean, the one thing that I'd add, I don't think it's always like, for example, if you have a fashion brand, if you worked with another jeans company 2 weeks before, that's not a bad thing, right? Because it doesn't need to be exclusive. So I think you want to take it with a grain of salt, and it's, you know, based on brand to brand.